guys, welcome back to my colourful country life. Today I have another tutorial for my beginner series on a topic that I get asked about often, and that is fixatives. Specifically, I'm going to be demonstrating how I use fixatives by using the Micador Workable Matte Fixative today. Now this is an Australian brand, I believe. I have linked some similar products in my Amazon store in the video description though. So if this is something you want to learn more about, stick around as we dive into what fixative is, its uses, and also a step-by-step demonstration on how to use it effectively, and also some tips and tricks. So let's start off with the basics. What exactly is fixative? Well, fixative is a clear protective spray used to seal and preserve your colouring pages. It is especially handy when you've used mediums like pencil, pastel, chalk, charcoal, basically any of your dry mediums. Now, why would you want to use fixative? Well, fixative serves a few purposes. Firstly is preservation. So some fixatives, usually the permanent fixatives, they do contain a UV filter to ensure light fastness of colours, so your work won't fade over time. Now, the brand that I'm using does not. This is not something that is important to me personally, but if this is something that is important to you, when you're selecting a fixative for your artwork, opt for a fixative that is specifically labelled as light fast or archival, because these products are formulated to provide the highest level of protection against UV light. So brands often conduct light fastness testing on their products, and they assign ratings or categories such as the ASTM ratings, which is the American Society for Testing and Materials, and this will indicate their light fastness level. In Australia, we have the Senalia brand, which claims to be highly light fast. I'm not sure if this is available in other countries as well, but this is a permanent fixative and not a workable fixative. So like I said earlier, you will find that a permanent fixative is more likely to claim a light fastness rating over your workable fixatives, but more on the differences between those two a little later. Now, another purpose and the main reason that I use a fixative is for protection. A fixative will aid in preventing smudging and also colour transfer to the opposite page in your book. Now, it does this by sealing the pigments. So fixative contains a solvent, usually a type of varnish or resin, that when sprayed onto your work, it interacts with the pigments of your coloured pencils or your other mediums. Now, as the solvent evaporates, it leaves behind a thin protective film that encases the pigments on your page, essentially gluing them to the page. So this prevents them from transferring onto other surfaces or your other page when touched, and it prevents them smudging. Now, the different types of fixative: a permanent fixative, which is usually just called a fixative, and a workable fixative serve similar functions in the realm of art, but they do have some distinct differences in terms of their properties and their applications. So a permanent fixative, now the purpose of a permanent fixative is primarily to set and protect. It will do this by creating a permanent and protective seal over the applied media, whether that's your coloured pencils, your pastels, your charcoal, or whatever medium, dry medium you've used. And it is designed to be permanent and unalterable once applied. So it's going to prevent smudging and possibly fading of the artwork over time, depending on your brand. A permanent fixative is typically applied as a final step to your completed page. It will lock the pigment or the particles in place. So this would be a suitable choice if you don't intend to make further changes to your colouring page. Now, a workable fixative, also known as a reworkable fixative, serves a dual purpose. So it can be used to temporarily set your pages as they are works in progress, allowing you to continue working on it without damaging the paper or your previous layers. And it can also serve as a final protective fixative when you've completed your entire page. Now, while it can provide permanent protection when used as a final fixative, a workable fixative is designed to be reactivated or worked over. So this makes it ideal if you want to make adjustments or add more layers to your colouring page. So you can use workable fixatives during the colouring process by applying them between layers to prevent smudging, while still being able to continue to work on top of that, or once you've completed one element on the page and before you start working on other elements on the page. So sometimes if I colour a large element, or if I use colours that I find tend to smudge easily. Prisma Blues and Prisma Reds, I'm looking at you. Now, I will colour that element and I will spray with a fixative before I continue colouring the rest of the page. So I don't really use my fixative to create layers as such, but mostly I use it just to set a particular element before I continue working on the page, or I use it at the very end of the final fixative. Now, I do use fixative spray on every single page once I've finished colouring it. Let me show you a page as an example of what I'm talking about. Now, if I look at Rooms of Wonder, you guys might have seen my colour along for this double page here. So this blue background I did before all the little details, and I find the blues tend to smudge, especially like if you're getting hot and sweaty, and when your hands are warming up, you can smudge the pencil across your page. So once I finished colouring all the blues, I did spray my page with fixative first, and I'm going to be doing a demonstration on how to do that in a minute. And then I went in and finished colouring all the elements. So my workable fixative, I find, doesn't change the texture of my paper at all for me to continue working. So in summary, the key difference between a fixative, so a permanent fixative, and a workable fixative is their reworkability. So regular fixatives provide permanent protection but cannot be altered once applied, while workable fixatives offer flexibility for people who want to continue working on their page after applying the fixative. Now, the choice between the two depends on your specific needs. I only own a workable fixative as it does everything I need. It does both. It is a permanent fixative at the end, but it is also workable. Like I said, the brand I use is not Lightfast, but for me, that's not a big deal. If it is for you, you're probably best off using a permanent fixative and just looking for your Lightfastness ratings. Fixatives also come in a matte or a gloss finish. Again, this is personal preference on how you want your finished page to look. As you can see, mine is a matte finish. If you want to try out a glossy fixative, just make sure you read the instructions first and test it out on some spare paper before you use it on your finished page, just to make sure you like the finished look. I personally use a fixative with a matte finish as I find it does not alter the look of my completed pages at all, which you will see in a minute when we do the demonstration. Now, I want to touch on the use of hairspray just quickly. Hairspray is not recommended as a substitute for fixative on your coloured pages. While it is convenient and cost effective, it does have some potential issues. So firstly, inferior protection. Hairspray is not formulated for art preservation. It lacks the specific chemicals and properties found in fixatives that are designed to protect and preserve artwork over time. Next is yellowing and discoloration. So hairspray may contain additives that can yellow or discolor your pages over time. Art fixatives are formulated to be non-yellowing and to maintain the true colors of your artwork. Also, inadequate adhesion. Hairspray is not designed to adhere pigments to paper effectively. It may not provide the same level of pigment adhesion and protection against smudging as a proper art fixative would. Lastly is the unknown long-term effects. So using hairspray in your colouring books may have unknown long-term effects, including potential damage to the paper or pigments. So to ensure the longevity and preservation of your coloured pages, I do recommend you use a dedicated art fixative designed for this purpose. That is if you wish to use a fixative at all. So not everyone does use fixatives. Some prefer to keep paper like a tracing paper or a baking paper between their pages, and that will serve a similar purpose as a fixative. And that could be a more cost-effective option for you instead of using a fixative. Now, having said all that, the issues I listed about hairspray may not be issues for you. They may not be important to you. Just like Lightfastness is not an issue that worries me. My recommendation, however, is not to use hairspray. So if you are looking for a cheaper alternative to fixatives, I'd recommend just using baking paper. You can get a 15-metre roll for $3 here in Australia. So also the fixative that I have costs around $15 Australian for the can. This is my second can in around 4 years, and it's still got quite a lot of life left in it. So a little does go a long way. Now, one last thing about fixatives, they can affect the absorbency of some papers. So if you are planning on using watercolour on your page, probably not a good idea to use a fixative prior to using your watercolor. And also remember at the beginning of the video, I did mention that fixatives are used to seal dry mediums and not water mediums. Okay, so enough theory, let's get practical. And here is a demonstration on how to use your workable matte fixative on your coloring pages, or how I use my workable matte fixative on my coloring pages. So I'm just going to go in and zoom you guys right out. So first we're going to prepare our workspace. Probably a good idea to move my tea out of the way. 1 second. Okay, so you want to find a well-ventilated area. Now for you, this might be outside. I am filming this, so for the purpose of this demonstration, I am inside, but I am in front of some large windows here, large open windows, and I am in a very well ventilated, large open space as well. Now, make sure you place your coloured page on a flat surface. This is going to ensure an even application and prevent any possible drips or runs. Then you're going to shake your can well to ensure an even spray. Now, double check the instructions on your brand of fixative, just in case there is anything different to mine. Otherwise, you want to hold the can about 30 centimeters away from your coloring page. And then you're going to spray in a steady sweeping motion. I spray quite fast, and I start from one edge and move across to the other in a zigzag motion. Now I'm demonstrating this on a colouring page I've pretty much just finished, and I have not sprayed this yet with any fixative. So we're going to go in with a layer number 1. Okay, and that's it. Quick and light, one spray zigzagging across. Now, once you've done that, just wait a minute. It doesn't take very long to dry at all. And then we're going to spray again in the opposite direction. Remember, less is more. You don't want to saturate the page. You are better off with lots of light layers rather than being heavy-handed with it. So I do 2 layers, one horizontal and then another vertical. Now, once that's done, let your page just sit and dry for a little bit. It will actually dry super quickly. Like I said, it's only going to take a minute or 2. And once it is dry, you can go back in and add more layers or work over it with other mediums if you wanted to, if you were using it as a work in progress rather than a completed page. Otherwise, if your page is complete, then that's it. That's all I do, and it is all done. Now I have a few helpful tips for you for when you're using your fixative. Always follow the manufacturer's instructions. I think this one goes without saying. Test it on a scrap piece of paper first to get a feel for how much fixative you need to apply. If you print a PDF page, you can seal the line art, the ink from your printer, with a workable fixative before colouring. If you have a printer where your ink tends to smudge, you can just spray on a light layer of fixative to stop your ink from smudging. If your coloured pencil pages tend to get wax bloom, fix the page with a gloss spray first and then use a matte fixative over it. The gloss fixative should even out the surface and get rid of the wax bloom, and then just go over the top with a matte finish spray. And there you have it, guys, a beginner's guide to using fixative in adult colouring books. It's a simple yet useful tool to protect your artwork. So go ahead, give it a try and let me know what you think. If you found this tutorial helpful, please consider giving it a thumbs up, subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any future videos. Until next time, keep colouring, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. Bye for now.